What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a video about the Wizard class in the upcoming Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, which is currently in beta. This class is actually the last of the base classes I have to cover. After this, we'll be moving into the Prestige classes, just as a heads up. I don't think I really need to explain what the Wizard is. They are learned mages who gain their power through study. They are arcane casters. Their spellcasting ability is intelligence. Their base class skills are Knowledge Arcana, Knowledge World, Lore Nature, and Lore Religion. For proficiencies, they will be proficient with the club, dagger, heavy crossbow, light crossbow, and quarterstaff, but not with any type of armor or shield. They will incur a failure chance when they are wearing armor to their spells, otherwise known as arcane spell failure. So typically speaking, you would want to wear robes. Now they also have Detect Magic, of course, as well as the Scribe Scrolls crafting feat at level 1. Wizards are also able to form an arcane bond that comes in one of two forms, a familiar or a bonded object. The familiar is a magical pet that enhances the wizard's skills. This gives a +2 bonus on perception check for any kind of familiar, and then after that, each familiar has a small bonus that it will confer to skills or saving throws, things like that. Whereas the bonded object will allow them to restore spell slots that they've spent. At 1st, 5th, 10th, 15th, and 20th level, the wizard will gain bonus spell feats. So any spellcaster feat, really, that the wizard meets prerequisites for, they can pick up as a bonus feat at these levels. Now, our base class wizard is able to pick a specialization. That is a magic school that they specialize in. They can choose to be a universalist, which will have its own set of bonuses. However, it also doesn't really come with any of the big bonuses from specializing in a school. The problem is, and the reason you might want to pick Universalist, is because specializing in a school, while making you pretty strong in that school, comes with the forced pick of 2 opposition schools. Now, opposition schools require you to use 2 spell slots to prepare any of their spells, which, as you can imagine, is a pretty big detriment. That said, you could potentially pick schools that you want to just, never really use and get rid of them that way. Thus, the increased spell level cost wouldn't really matter. But each school will give you bonuses at certain levels. It'll give you extra class features depending on what you pick. None of them are too crazy, but they do give you some nice bonuses to make playing a wizard more fun. Now that brings us to our archetypes. The first is our Arcane Bomber. They don't get to choose a specialization because they specialize in alchemical bombs. Arcane Bombs is essentially the same as the Alchemist's bomb ability. However, unlike the Alchemist, they will have to choose one type of energy from acid, cold, fire, or electricity, and that will be the bomb type you can throw. You can't modify them with discoveries. You can modify them with the other ability you get at level 1, which is called Spell Blast Bombs. As a swift action, you can sacrifice one of your spell slots to empower the next bomb you throws during your turn. This will give you a bonus to hit with the next bomb, equal to the level of the spell you sacrificed, and a bonus to damage equal to twice the level of the spell you sacrificed. Now that brings us to our next archetype, the Exploiter Wizard. Now they won't get to choose a specialization, nor will they get to choose a bond with a object or a familiar. However, they pick up Arcane Reservoir, as well as Arcanist exploits. Now I'm not going to go over these in too much depth, because I already have a video about the Arcanist class that explains all this, but essentially the Arcane Reservoir will give you magical points that you can then spend on Arcanist exploits. These are essentially magical abilities that don't cost you spell slots, but rather points from your Arcane Reservoir. Again, if you're interested in more about that and how that works, look up my Arcanist class video, but as you can imagine, they don't get quite as many of these exploits as the actual Arcanist would. Now that brings us to our Scroll Savant. They sacrifice some of their wizard bonus feats for some scroll-specific things, starting with Scroll Focus at level 1. This will add half your class level at a minimum of 1 as a bonus to Use Magic device checks. You will always take 10 on Use Magic device checks to cast a spell from a scroll if 10 is enough for a successful skill check. Basically meaning that if rolling 10 is enough to pass that skill check, it becomes impossible for you to fail it. Then at 5th level, we pick up Scroll Specialization. Whenever we use a scroll, we calculate the DC for any spell it contains using our intelligence modifier instead of the minimum modifier needed to cast a spell of that level. And then lastly, we pick up Scroll Mastery at 10th level, allowing us to use our caster level when we cast spells using scrolls as opposed to the item's caster level. And that brings us to our last archetype, the Thessalonian Specialist. These guys get slightly modified specialist schools. Not in any major way, they're just renamed mostly after one of the 7 deadly sins, but they do have to pick one, and they cannot pick Universalist. Moreover, after they pick that school, each school for this specialist here has 2 designated prohibited schools. Now, prohibited schools are different from opposition schools in that you can't use prohibited schools at all. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, why would I want to do that when the base class can just give me regular specialist without actually taking away schools altogether? Thessalonian Specialist receives 2 additional spell slots of each spell level you can cast. They do have to be used to prepare the same spell from the Wizard School of Specialization, essentially allowing you to use your specialized school even more often. Now, with the 2 prohibited schools, if you were trying to use a spell trigger or spell completion item to cast a spell from one of your prohibited schools, you have to use the Use Magic Device skill to do so. So there you go, guys. There is a look at what is currently available for the Wizard in Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, which is currently in beta, of course. Now that said, all classes are expected to have 6 archetypes at launch, so we're definitely going to get some more for this. But for now, that is what we have to show. Now, with that out of the way, truly, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys are looking forward to the Prestige classes next. But in the meantime, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I truly do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom, and have an amazing day.